welcome to Connects Live. I'm Mark Michelson. I'm the founder of CX Forms and also a marketing research consultant. And I happen to have be a practitioner in the area of qualitative research. So today, our guest couldn't make it for this time. She had to postpone to another day. So I'm going to jump in here and share some of my knowledge and some of my background and skills for you to how to connect with customers remotely and understand them while in the age of COVID. So I'm going to go ahead and get going on that, share my screen with you, and let's see if you have any questions along the way, please put them in the chat and I'll be happy to address those questions and bring you on screen at some point during the presentation. We can have a chat. So I'm going to start off with the idea that digital qualitative is really just about using the devices we're used to using every day now. 20 years ago, it was quite different. The bandwidth was not quite as good for video. There were no smartphones 20 years ago. They came around in about 2009 and weren't really widely adopted until later. But nonetheless, people can communicate and share things, as we know now from a year into COVID, that you are more than comfortable sharing and using these devices, which are very simply a computer, a mobile phone, and obviously telephones. So as we go through these slides here, I'm going to share with you a couple of thoughts. First thing is, why is qualitative research needed? And I'm going to share with you a story just very briefly. If we based everything on quantitative surveys, if we just based all of our decisions on surveys alone, we would run a survey and say, what's your favorite color, for instance? If your favorite, and you'll see, if you do a national poll, you'll find that about 17 or so percent of the entire population really loves the color purple. And if you were to use that alone and divide it out, you'd see that, oh, like 24% of all women love the color purple. If that's all you had to go on, then why are there not more purple cars? Why are there not more purple houses? You have to dig deeper. You have to ask questions like, what would you think of someone driving a purple car? How would you feel if driving a purple car? So that's why qualitative is needed. It gives the color to data. So there's a whole bunch of different kinds of initiatives that we can solve around using digital qualitative. And this is basically just a fancy word for saying remote research. But it's not just a survey. It is about understanding people and understanding who is doing what and what their feelings are. It's emotional. But these types of initiatives can help with innovation initiatives. That's the fuzzy front end of stuff. If you've got innovation, could be anything from service design to facility and building, store design, or museums or hotels. It could be anything from even in branding initiatives or product development. So anything having to do with new stuff, it could help give the customer insight to that. Journey mapping, I think it's a critical part of journey mapping, especially in defining things like buyer personas or different buying states that people go through, and understanding what those touch points are just from a very front end point of view. Also, if you have any areas to deal with, journey, you can also explore that closer. Messaging in any kind of communications is a good idea to run that by some people, just to test it out and make sure that they're on board. And could be customers, could be prospects, whoever it is you want to reach. There are ways to get those people involved and have them tested. Brand perceptions and touch point feedback. Say someone fills out a survey, there's a way actually at different times to bring those people right into an interview and ask their permission. Hey, do you have a minute to chat? You can do it on a lot of different methods. Now, when it gets into the actual use of the tools, they range anywhere from very complex tools to very simple tools. The thing is to know which tool does what so that we don't use the wrong tool. There's an old saying, when the whole world is when you're making hammers, the whole world's a nail. So I try not to be married to one process, tool, or vendor at any given time. And that's because I want to have the flexibility to make sure I can use the right tool to meet the client objectives. And these tools, like I said, they can be very simple, they're very complex. And to give you an idea of what that looks like, it's very easy. If the most simple is probably a telephone interview. You just have a telephone call. You don't have to use any other technology other than being able to talk with each other and record the call. It's critical to record the call because you can't remember everything and you might have to go back and have transcripts and things. The next one would be video meetings, which we're all used to now. Gosh, who would have thought we could have video meetings even on our phone? But a video meeting may be useful to have a person on a laptop or desktop because you might want to share things or do exercises with them in a whiteboard or have them write out things or share photos that they submitted in advance of the interview. Mobile apps is another thing that came around about, like I said, around 2010 or so, and I actually created the Mobile Marketing Research Association. And we decided there was a lot of issues around privacy, around recruiting, around making sure that people felt safe and comfortable using a mobile app to participate in research because they're sharing things from photos and videos and location. And you have to be careful about what you're capturing in a mobile photograph for privacy issues as well. And finally, the most complex is probably an integrated platform. And that's a platform that integrates all of these other three into, as well as recruiting and information on who you're interviewing and storing all of this information in a sensible place so you can then analyze it for later. Moving right along here, we have the methods that we use are similar to what we've done a long time in marketing research. And ethnographic studies, if you don't know what it is, it's basically living with the customer. It's the old saying in anthropology is, walk a mile in a customer's shoes. In the past, I've had to go into people's homes or work and ride along with people on tractors and have a camera crew with me going in to watch people make spaghetti or wrap gifts or go shopping with them. Now you don't have to do that. They can use their own phone and you're go along wherever you want, wherever they want to take you. And you'd be surprised the places they'll take you. Quite a few stories on that. I don't have to share right now, but hit me up later. Diary keeping is also interesting because it's really a way of tracking someone's behaviors a long time. So if their diary keeping is proper and you have the other aspects of mobile and built in, like date and time stamps and location, geolocation, you know where they were, what they were doing, and what they wanted to share with you along with the diary. Could be things like photos or even short clips of video. In-depth interviews can be done again on the phone or in a on an online environment, just like a Zoom meeting. It's a little more complex than a Zoom meeting, though. Most of these things have to be set up at a specific time where you're going to interview the person. They're going to be paid for doing it or given some sort of incentive. Recruiting those people is always a challenge, but it's always managed every day. And even doing in-depth interviews, I did a study with a big tech company about usability, and it had to do with VR systems. So we had three cameras going in the participant's home. It just happened to be they had a laptop, and then we were able to see their screen, and then we were also to use their mobile to see what they were doing in the room, moving around. So it can be very complex. More than Zoom is required for these things. Real-time focus groups, that's what we're doing here. It's typical Brady Bunch format, and you get 6 to 8 people involved who are going to view stuff. Again, being able to share things. We do a lot of ad testing with that kind of group, and just real kind of a quick hit. I remember, gosh, doing those in the past. It was more of a challenge because, again, low speeds on internet. People wouldn't even know how to use technology a lot of times. So real-time focus groups, they're more feasible now than they were, say, 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. I think we've come a long way just in the past year or so in our bandwidth and technology. And finally is the bulletin board discussion. A bulletin board discussion is asynchronous. In other words, people can participate whenever they want to. They don't have to show up at 2 o'clock. They don't have to drive anywhere. They can be anywhere in the world. And a bulletin board discussion would be thought out as far as the questions. And generally, you want to ask just a few questions for each login time. The way I like to structure mine is a lot of times I'll do, say, some mobile ethnography or diary keeping leading up to the bulletin board. And then we'll review some of the stuff that we learned through their path to purchase and really sort of dig down into journey mapping and maybe even do some projective stuff, like they can share some images that share how they feel. But in bulletin boards, it's interesting because you can schedule things for people to log in 2 times a day. And when they log in, they're going to see, just like on Facebook, a threaded discussion. They're going to be presented with questions they haven't answered. And the cool thing about it is, unlike in a real time focus group, every person has to answer the question before they see other people's answers. That means they're going to give you unbiased points of view about whatever that topic or question is. After they submit their question, or their answer rather, then they see everyone else's answers and they have the ability to comment on each other's comments and answers. So it's a thread discussion, just like in Facebook, where you can go in and make your comment on top, add to someone else's comment. So those are the real methods that we use. Those are also most of those, except for bulletin boards, have been used for a long time. And bulletin boards have actually been around for about 20, 25 years now. Okay, there's some really important steps you have to manage and in doing any kind of qualitative study, even if you're going to just jump in and talk to someone on a phone call, right? You need a clear objective. What is it you're trying to get to? What answers do you need? And even more importantly, what are you going to do with the answers when you have them? What's the business case you're solving? Is there something really you need to drill down on? So, thinking through those questions, thinking through even the study design, how are we going to approach it? What's the best method? Is it mixed methods, such as moving from mobile ethnography to in depth interviews or bulletin boards? Or is it going to be just one mode? In other words, we're just going to do some reach people while they're in stores and talk to them there. There are lots of panels out there I didn't mention that have mobile capabilities, so that if I wanted to right now, I can go to a website and say, I want to see what the Coca-Cola display looks like this next weekend, between now and Friday. I want to see it at Walmart stores in 400 locations. I'll have photos and videos within a day, and I could show it to you. It's just amazing. There's a bunch of vendors like that now. They have people have already opted in to participate in mobile research, and it's pretty cool. They reach them on their phone, and let them know. Recruiting, that's another real challenge for a lot of companies, um, especially in the age of COVID. I think people do want to share their stories, and a lot of people do. Some people don't, but you have to have incentives that are set up for that. And you have to let them know what to expect, and make sure they have the tech skills to do it, as well as the time to do it. And in a lot of our studies, we'll set it up to where we need people who are actually in the market or want to purchase whatever the client product is. So we send them on a shopping adventure. Say, start at zero. You're looking for, I don't know, tile for your kitchen or whatever it is. Where do you start first? And then they actually document all that. There's a ton of photos and things, but the recruiting has to be right, or you have the wrong person. It's a good idea to build up some sort of community within your own client base if you're on the client side. If you don't have that, you can always tap into panels and other resources that can do recruiting for you. Most of your big research survey companies like Question Pro have panel access, so you can just go in there and recruit through them if you want. Or even more importantly, is to make sure you're talking to these people in addition to running a survey, so you can make sure that they can speak and eloquently, and they can share their thoughts as good as possible. Interviewing engagement is tricky. There's a lot of different methods to interviewing, from the Socratic method all the way up through just the projective techniques. So you want to have that well thought out in your study design, and make sure that you're engaging the customer in something that's interesting for them. And it really, if you've done a bunch of these before, like I have, it can be really repetitive after time. And you just want to make sure you're still in that objective mode when you're interviewing, so you don't lead anyone towards sort of a preconceived conclusion. Analysis is, it can be very easy and it can be very hard. It depends on your design. Study design and analysis are intrinsically linked, because how you ask stuff and where you ask it and what questions you ask is going to lead toward that analysis. And qualitative research, unlike survey research, we don't know exactly what that report's going to look like. We know there's going to be sections. We're going to share things like photos and videos, and we know that we're going to share quotes, but magnitude of how many people said something. A lot of clients want to know that. And I just did a study not long ago. I had 120 people buying tires, and the client wanted to dig down and know this kind of auto or that kind of auto and this area, et cetera. It becomes really complex when you've got 120 people engaged in a study over a 2-month period, all sharing photos and videos and comments back with you, and taking all of that information, all the photos and videos, and making sense out of it for the client. They wanted to know ultimately in that, how can they sell more tires, obviously, but they also had some other objectives. I can't go into it here, but analysis is critical to making sure that you have clear information to share with your key stakeholders. And that part of that's reporting. And also it's also publishing. So you want to share that stuff with them in small bites that they can make sense out of. This is from a study I did with hurricane survivors not too long ago. And it just shows you on a platform that's made for interviewing. It's not really just a Zoom meeting. This person's come in here, they're already prepared. They've been recruited in. We can manage these people. And they submit photos or images that they feel, they share photos of their actual damage to their property. They can also upload things that are projective images, like upload an image that sort of shows how you were feeling during the storm and then after the storm. And that's kind of what's going on in this third image over here too, is starting to look at journey mapping, sort of like before, during, after the storm. What were you feeling? What was a positive? What was negative? I just have a second here to share this one video clip with you real quick. See if I can do all these tech things here that I have to do in order to do this. Let's see, where'd everybody go? I gotta stop this share and start this share. Here we go. This one is a real quick clip from that hurricane study. So here you go. Check it out.
Big wall up there. Let's take a look at these photos you sent. I appreciate you sending them in to us. I also appreciate your time taking out to share your story here. So we have 3 photos here you sent in. The first one here is you. It looks like you and perhaps your dog.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me what's going on here. This is the before shot. Before a hurricane, you know it's coming. What are you feeling here?
Well, we're just relaxing on the porch, trying to enjoy the nice sun before the hurricane hit. And the dog, she loves being outside.
Anyhow, I'm not going to go through that whole thing, but if you notice that photo that was on the far right, that was his home after the hurricane. It was wiped out the entire bottom floor. And that kind of brings me to the last area here, and that is, it's tough sometimes when you're doing these interviews with people who are maybe maybe they're struggling with something, and so you really need to be empathetic with people as an interviewer to do that kind of work. If you're not used to it, practice on your friends and family, or come here and practice during our networking sessions. But it really helps to just understand what people are thinking, what they're doing. So that concludes what I have to share with you here. I'm more than happy to share more, and I'm going to exit here real quick so we can take a look at some Q&A. So let's see what kind of Q&A we might have with everyone. All right, so let's see here. Any questions? Any recommended bulletin board app? Yeah. Carl, you want to come on? I'll bring you up here and we'll share that with you real quick.
Okay, I'm unmuted and now I'm here.
All right. So, bulletin board apps are interesting. There are a bunch of different ones out there. And so the main thing you want to do there's really like 5 major players. You could structure this in your own environment, and I've actually done that a few times. There are some resources like a link, like a Facebook, where you create your own social media, and that one's called Ning. But not everyone's really willing to go there, and it's hard to manage people as far as knowing their login times and how far along they are completing things. So if you go with a professional, designed bulletin board, I'll rattle off a few of them here, and we can share that later if you want. But 2020 research, I've used them for a long time. They do a really good job with recruiting, management, and bulletin boards, and they've evolved their bulletin boards over time to allow everything from notifications to people to come and answer questions, as well as letting me know when someone has a question or something that's urgent. They also have the technology teams there to help people. I like them particularly because they also manage the recruiting. Some of the other bulletin board companies out there don't always manage recruiting in-house. 2020 was started by a marketing research firm, and that makes a big difference. They actually have physical facilities in a bunch of different cities. The other bulletin board companies I'll mention started off as technology companies who are going to sort of create that bulletin board based on what researchers had to say. So the other ones that I've seen out there are Recollective is the name of one, Recollective. There's one under the Focus Vision umbrella, and Focus Vision is a big company that does a lot of remote video for focus groups, but Focus Vision has one in there. I can't remember the name exactly, but a buddy of mine had created, sold it to them. And then there's a couple more. I know that there's one up in Canada I've used quite a bit. I'm drawing a blank on it at the moment, but there's a bunch of them, and I'll be happy to post a links to all these in our discussion group if you'd
Yeah.
like. Just
Yep.
remind me.
Yep. All right. Thank you. Yeah.
Yep. Any other questions? Other questions, other thoughts? Okay, well, we don't have a lot of time left here, so I'm going to go ahead and close up this part of the program. And thank you very much for your attention, and hope you learned something out of this brief presentation of a big world of qualitative. So we're going to close out the program and then jump right into our networking. And Audrey, take us out.